So it is June 8th, 2022, and this is Carol Dawn, and I'm here with Liz Ann Eaton, and we are interviewing BettyAnn Weiss and Joe Weiss, and we're here talking about the history of St. Vincent de Paul ministry at St. Matthew Parish. So thank you guys for being willing to talk with us today. Don't be afraid. So to start with, can you give us a little history about
St. Vincent de Paul started back in 1833 in Paris. And it was Frederick Olsen, who was a college student, and he got a bunch of guys together. They named it after St. Vincent de Paul was the patron saint of poor and helpful people. So anyway, but the first conference came to Milwaukee in 1848. Wow. But then our first conference, our St. Matthew's conference was started in 1933. Wow. And Father Peshon was leaving, and Father Adant came on at 33. And I think it was Father Adant that started it.
Okay.
And, my dad was one of them. I got a lot of people. I got some pictures of people that were in it at that time. My dad was in it until he died in 73.
And so your dad's name is
Joe Weiss.
Is also Joe Weiss.
Yeah.
Okay, and
so
he was one of the founding members.
One of them. Felix Haas was president at that, and he was served for 25 years. I mean, there's a lot of names I can give, but.
And the pictures you have are in the book?
Various things here. Some of them are in this other book here. This is a book from 1962 with dedication of the church. And
okay.
There's the picture of.
So do we take this with us, or do we take a picture of it?
Okay,
all right. Good. Yeah. All right.
And anyway, at that time, let me see, in 62 they built a new church, a new building. And St. Vincent de Paul even had their own room in that basement. I think later they converted it into there was a printing room where they made the bulletins. They did it all by hand. Yes. And I don't know what that room is now, but that was the St. Vincent de Paul room exclusively for that. But as the church grew and the parish grew, they had to give up that room. So
do you know how did they use that room? Was it specifically for meetings? Did they?
Basically meetings. Okay.
I mean,
they had some information, their filing cabinet in there, and we've always had a statue of St. Vincent de Paul. And they met every week, every week at 7 o'clock on Tuesday.
And I take it you don't
Tuesday
now.
night.
No,
it's now monthly, but we should be, monthly works for us,
Okay. Do you know what, what did the ministry look like back then? What were they doing?
There was about, originally there were about 10 people in it, but they did have 20 associate members, or contributing members.
Okay.
And their funds came from, they had a pamphlet rack in the back of the old church, and even I think in our church here, a pamphlet, they must get $5 a week just on donations from the pamphlets and they moved a lot of them by week. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Huh.
And then these honorary members would donate, and each guy would donate, and then the poor boxes, which we still have in church, funds came from that. But in when the church was built, they were having paper drives. They'd have a semi come once a month or something, and people would collect paper. We'd go to people's houses.
I forgot about those.
And they made quite a bit of money when paper was. You got quite a bit of money back then.
Okay, wow.
And John and I, being my dad, was very involved.
Well, he was president, wasn't he?
No, he was not that. No, he was treasurer at that time. I think most of the time. But anyway, he had us involved when the school was built. All this cardboard boxes from everything. John and I were up there cleaning out all these rooms,
folding them
up, and getting them ready. I mean, but they got a lot of money on that. So we were volunteering back in 1962. I was.
Yeah.
Oh, what was I? Just high school age.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So anyway, that's some of the history there.
Sure.
Home visits. I mean, they did a lot of home visits. They'd go on visits maybe 3 or 4 a week.
Wow.
And Caravel was in existence at that time for all the factory workers. A lot of Mexicans were coming from Mexico, and they couldn't quite make it, so they would. I mean, this is all stuff we didn't know until I read now the history.
Sure.
But they'd be going to people. Well, I went to Ogden School, which is right across the street from St. Matthew's.
It used to be.
Yeah. And they shoes. I mean, there were some families that had 5 kids. So they give them vouchers for shoes, clothing. I don't know where they got the food. They take them food.
Okay.
You know, I mean, people just couldn't make it go. You know, so they did a lot of that.
Wow.
For years. Another thing that they did back then, they knew a family had a baby, and if that baby wasn't baptized in a certain amount of time, they'd go and they made house calls and visit and say, now you really should get that baby baptized.
Wow, okay.
Or it was other sacramental things that they would.
So that was a part of the ministry.
That was at that particular time.
And that's great. Taking care of the spiritual side.
Yeah, it was very much spiritual,
you know?
very much spiritual. Maybe if somebody wasn't going to Mass, they'd kind of jack them up a little. Another thing they did, of course, was prison. I shouldn't say prison ministry, but the House of Correction.
Okay.
They'd go out there and assist. I think they had Masses maybe once a month out there. A priest would come. But they would go out there and pray with the guys and stuff, you know.
Wow.
St. Vincent de Paul still does that in some places, but around Milwaukee, I don't think they want us going into the jails and stuff anymore.
Okay.
And another thing we would do is the Xaverian Fathers.
Yes.
One of them would come for Masses when we had 4 Masses a Sunday.
Okay.
And we'd go down, my dad would go and pick them up, but I'd go along with them, you know. Like various Vincentians would do this. They'd take turns going out, bringing them for Mass, and then taking them back.
Nice. Wow.
I can remember another lady in South Milwaukee that needed a ride to church. We'd do that too, take her to church and bring her back home.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of some other things. Well, you got some questions.
Sure. So when did you, I mean, sounds like you've always been involved. When did you, I guess, formally become a member?
Oh, this is, yeah. It was, like I said, about 8 to 10 full-time, members of the society. And then about the 70s, we started losing them. My dad passed away in 73, and a whole bunch of guys. It was about the 80s, in the 80s area. It was down to 2 people were left. Wow. Richard Tenner and Lou Mazzetto. And they kept this organization going for many years.
Just those 2.
Wow.
2 guys.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't want a bunch of people, do you?
Well, no, not
you know
you can only use so many.
Don't
That's
need
true.
a bunch
That's
now.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying my dad has been a member, and there was never a large group. There was always pretty, because you have to be very careful about information getting out.
Definitely. That my dad never said a thing. He'd go away and come back. We knew nothing. You know. Yeah. He didn't say I went on a couple of visits. He wouldn't say anything.
So it takes a special person, I feel, to do that.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, anyway, then when was it? They held the conference together until 2001, and then for years, Dick Tanner, I said, Joel, when are you going to, and John, when are you going to take over? When are you going to give us some relief, you know? And finally, in 2001, we got new members, and their pictures are in here. It was, in this particular picture, it was John Bissell, John Weiss, Joe Weiss, Mike Brockle, and Lou Mazzetto. That was a picture at a meeting.
Okay.
Trying to think if there was a couple more at that time. We got about 5 new guys, and boy, that relieved Dick Tanner, and he passed the presidency on to me after about a year. And
he was ready.
And I held that job for more than a year. You're supposed to be 3 years term, and then maybe another 3-year term, but then
that's it.
Yeah.
But I went about 15 years or something like that.
So at that time, can you explain kind of what are the ministries? Like, I don't think people are aware of the home visits and what that involves and things like that.
That's where the spirituality comes in, because a lot of these people are not churched, they're not religious, they just need help. But we try to tell them a little bit about the parish, and that it's because of these people that you are getting help. So they, and sometimes we see them in church, which is a benefit.
So what's the process?
How we get
People
notified.
come up to Father and say they need help, and then what's the process?
Well, they're supposed to call St. Vincent de Paul in Milwaukee, the district office, and then they they've already sent a letter, a confidential letter stating who they were and what they needed and whether they had help in the past or a little bit of their history. But now it comes by a computer, an email or something.
Quicker.
But we make the phone call, the initial phone call, and arrange a time that we can meet with them. And
it's always a personal
always two
visit.
will go at a time.
Good.
We always go in a pair, and we rarely go together. I mean, it's always one of us and someone else.
But when we first started in 2001 or thereabouts, we got quite a few calls. I mean, maybe 12 to 18 calls a year or something like that, and it kind of fell off now. Sometimes a month goes by, we don't have a call at all. But that's why we took up then the meal program, so we're very much involved with that.
Is that a separate issue?
No. If you want to explain
Well,
the meal
explain
program,
that.
how that happens.
Because I think a lot of people don't know about that.
Well, there again, let's see that.
That started earlier than.
Well,
that.
that
Ruthie
started about
is the
20.
one. Yeah, Ruthie took over the meal program for St. Matthew's.
That was about 25 years ago.
Ruthie
I don't have that.
last name
In the
is
1990s
Ruth?
something. What?
Ruth Shabelsky.
yeah. Just because people
she-
watching
Oh,
might not know her.
sure.
She wanted a meal program, and Alice wanted. She encouraged having St. Matthew's having a meal program. Well, then it turned out that we didn't necessarily have the finances to do that at that time. Well, Lynn Nowak was a member of Catholic Family,
Oh, I wonder.
and she said, well, they were doing it for many years, and the people were getting older, and they needed younger people. So
They had the money.
So
But
they
not the
said
people.
we would help
So,
out,
yeah.
they would finance it. So all those years, Catholic, and then it turned to Catholic Family turned into Catholic Financial Life.
Yeah.
And they supplied us with the donations, all the money, until about 2 years ago or thereabouts, and the branch that we were in disbanded. So
And that's why St. Matthew's took it over.
Okay.
So we
Well,
fund the whole.
So we
program.
do. I did not
we
know
financed
that.
the whole thing now. But now, it's fortunate that we're getting
Yeah, so first of all, explain when you say we're involved in the meal program. What does that look like? What kind of food? How does it get
You can
made?
tell,
Who
yeah.
serves it?
Okay, on the first Tuesday of the month, St. Matthew's supplies all the food for the 10th and Madison site. It's a meal site, and we serve a lot of homeless, a lot of just people that need extra help, and
how many people would you say?
well, right now about 125. We've been up 250 at times, and so the insurance company was making stew, so we said we'll make stew. Okay. So that's why we're making stew, and when we go down there, the clients are so appreciative. Oh, I love the stew. I love the stew. As opposed to mac and cheese that they get sometimes.
Sure.
Each parish can do, or each church or organization can make whatever they want.
Okay.
So we make the stew, and we make dessert breads and a lettuce salad.
So who makes the food? Do you guys get together to make the food, or how does
No.
that work?
Lizanne can actually
Every month it's
explain.
different individuals that have volunteered to make it.
Okay.
Right. There's a list of people that, are stew makers. There's a list of people who are bread makers. There's a list of people who are servers.
Okay.
Sometimes they overlap.
And
not
I'm a
always.
substitute.
Yeah, not always. But when it was open and we did serve in person, we needed many people to serve because there's 2 lines of food, and we would pour milk and juice and water and coffee and stuff. And that really was a ministry in itself because you were going to the table and carrying on conversations with the people who were there, which was really neat, as opposed to just giving them their stew.
Sure.
So, Yeah, it's a wonderful ministry, and we hope it comes back to what it was, but it's not there yet.
So it's not open now because
right now because of COVID. What we're doing is filling take-home boxes.
Oh.
We don't fill it, but we bring the stew down and the lettuce and the breads, and they make up portions, you know.
Oh.
And so the people still come through. They don't go into the building, but they come up the walkway and down the walkway, and they're handed their food.
Okay, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
So
You were saying that, I was thinking.
I've got some pictures that
And
I can show you late, you know,
Sure.
if you want to take of the meal programs.
Yeah.
Some aren't real recent, but
That's okay.
gives you an idea
Yes.
what's happening there.
While you were saying that, I was thinking. But in addition to the salad and that, they oftentimes have some fruit and things like that, right?
oh, fruit and vegetables.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they supply
that.
They supply the
Yeah, we don't.
And
don't
drinks,
do
well, they were doing drinks, but not, that might change now too. We would serve coffee. We took enough people down that we could help serve the beverages. Would be coffee, juice, milk.
that. There was a time we were supplying the milk. We would have to go and buy 40 gallons of milk. you
Okay,
know?
yeah.
It's interesting in the grocery store when people see, 20 heads of lettuce. What are you doing with that? You
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah. 40 pounds of potatoes. Anyway, so that's what we do.
And we buy the food or supply the food and put it in the big bags and the meat, and we deliver it with a roaster on Monday, and then Tuesday
Delivered to.
the people who are making the stew.
Okay.
And then on Tuesday it's collected, or they bring it to St. Matt's and we drive it down.
Okay.
It's the first Tuesday of the month.
Okay. So, that's what I was going to ask you. So what happens the rest of the month?
There's various
Of every
parishes
church, yeah.
and
every
groups,
parish.
not necessarily,
Uh-huh.
not necessarily.
So, like, some days it's spaghetti day for them, and sometimes
Exactly.
it's chicken.
Each one
Each
has
group
their
has their
own
own
thing that
hot
they
dogs
make.
and
So they're not getting stew day after day after day or
No.
anything like that.
They only get stew once a month, and it's us, and they love it.
And can you talk a little bit more about the home visits? Because so you said you get the information, you make the call, and you go to a person's home. When you meet with them, what are you doing, and how is it that how do they have access to goods?
That's a great question. All right, when we make a visit, we try to, well, first of all, some of the visits are very hard to make. You walk in and you see nothing, absolutely nothing. There might be a couple of chairs, but that's it. And you might see a blow-up mattress, and that's their bed. So these are oftentimes people who are truly in need. And honestly, almost everyone just wants to talk and tell their story. And so we listen. And what's cool is you don't make judgments, you just listen to how they got to be in that position. And then the next thing is, well, it looks like you asked for, because they will ask for certain things. It might be clothing, it might be a bed, it might be a couch, it could be almost anything. We don't really deal with electronics so much, appliances. We can, but it's more difficult.
Because we don't have any, and the store doesn't have any. St. Vincent de Paul doesn't have their own. You got to send them to like a resale shop or somebody that rehabs things.
So you give them a voucher? Is that what you for St. Vincent de Paul store?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So we assess how much they need. Do they need clothing for 5 kids, or just for 2 people, or whatever. And so then we'll write out a voucher slip, which they can take within a month's time to the store. And we are charged half, right?
Yeah, about
we charge
half.
half. And if we give them a voucher for, say, $100 worth of clothing, they'll get $200 worth.
Well, no, they'll get 100. We pay 50.
But we pay 50,
Okay.
and yeah.
Great. Yeah.
So how often can they ask you for help? I mean, does somebody come every month?
It depends on how much.
not
No,
that
we don't
often.
have too many repeats.
Oh,
But we
there's been
do,
some,
but we do.
sometimes they want rent $600 or something, and we can't only
You
do
don't
that
do
one time or
Can
maybe
you just
one
pick
time.
up the phone and hang it up, because
Yeah,
it's
just-
okay. Yeah, just
hang it up.
hang it up. Thank you.
We get 10 calls a day. Robocalls and spam calls.
This is being recorded.
This is a part of history, right? This is part of history.
It's what's going on right now.
This is what we're experiencing.
Yeah. But yeah, so then they take it down and they get what they need. Sometimes things have to be delivered, so then there's a delivery fee, that we will pay.
Okay.
So this isn't like something they can count on every month.
No, generally not. No, it's just to get somebody over a temporary setback, more or less.
It's really like a Band-Aid.
Okay.
So how do you raise the funds for this ministry then?
Well, the poor boxes in church help a lot, but our biggest thing is that Super Bowl collection, and I got pictures of that too to show you if you want to take pictures. Yeah, that is our big fundraiser.
It's amazing what the generosity is of the people at St. Matthew's. I mean, it's incredible.
And that's once a year.
Once a year,
Super Bowl Sunday
weekend.
Usually, right?
Yes,
it is. We try to do it Super Bowl Sunday.
Okay.
And yeah, we're just blown away every year by how generous people are.
Great, good.
And the people that donate every so often.
There's some people that annually will just send us a check.
Okay.
Here's my contribution. And so and we got a note. I haven't been well enough to be in church, so I can't really give you money. So I'm sending it to you.
Oh yeah, very nice.
Things like that. Yeah. So it's heartwarming.
Good. So how have you seen this ministry change in the time that you've been a part of it, or has it stayed about the same? I mean, what?
Well, it is the need for individual visits from home visits have dropped off quite a bit. I mean, from when my dad was in, I mean, it was, I'd say 3 or 4 a week. Now when we started, then we'd get 3 or 4 a month.
Right.
And now it's down to some months with none. But that's why we more or less like to do the meal program. It gives us something to do. And what else is there that?
Why would you think that it is?
Well, hopefully things are better.
Because of our
higher
economy.
Yeah, a higher economy and all that.
And I think there's more resources out there.
Yeah, a lot of resources.
That's
true.
true.
A lot of churches have food pantries, and they go in and get their food there.
Okay.
That's another thing we do give them is gift cards to Pick and Save. And we try to connect them with, if they're having a problem paying their rent, we tell them about rental assistance, and sometimes they don't have their heat and lights have been turned off. Well, this is who you call, not that we call for them, but we give them the information that they can use.
Okay.
So
at one time, St. Matthew's had a food pantry. It really wasn't St. Vincent de Paul. It was Human Concerns. It was in the old hall.
Oh yes.
And but then when the Salvation Army came in, then they took it over.
Okay.
And then now St. Stephen's even has one, I guess. But
is there any direction you see this going, or you'd like to see it go, or like we added on the meal program kind of thing?
Well, there might be some other things that get some younger blood in, and they might come up with some new ideas. Some conferences are getting kids involved, high school people involved, but I don't think we have the need for that right here. We've got 8 guys on now, and I mean, Jamie comes, he probably says, what do we do? What do we accomplish? And if we had more things to do.
And I think with not serving in person because of COVID, that has impacted.
Yes. We don't need near as many people that way either. But
But I think that you're right about involving more youth, and I don't mean like high school youth, but just younger men.
We need some younger people to take over. I mean,
exactly.
When Dick and Lou took over, there was the 2 of them. We need younger people. And John and I should have started way back when, but now we should be replaced.
Right, yeah.
Oh, not yet.
Is there anything else? I mean, anything else that comes to mind about the ministry? Maybe
Or something you have in there.
or a highlight or something that, I mean, everything you've shared has been great. And I just want to make sure before we conclude that we don't cut you off, you know.
Well,
We can always
I
stand it up.
can,
Yeah.
I can think of one story that I think is really amazing. There was a need that a woman had for a bed. And I can't remember, well, we went and we got the bed because she had no way of doing it. But then we needed help getting the bed into the apartment and stuff. And so we asked our son Jim. And he did. And he helped put it together. And so then we left. There was a fire in that apartment building. And all the people were ushering out, and this woman came up to Jim, who was fighting the fire, I think, and said, "I remember you. You put my bed together."
Yeah.
So you do touch a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good. Well, thank you, and thank you for the ministry you're doing, and you continue to do. And like you said, we need more people to take it over.
Well,
That's right.
Also
That's
some
right.
younger people that can carry on.
So right now, who is? Can you say?
Bill
who's
Krieger
members?
is the president. Dan
Okay.
Wax is
And
kind of
Dan,
vice president.
yeah.
Dan.
Oh,
Dan
I
Well,
love
Wax.
neither one wanted to be president.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
So they're
it wasn't-
co-vice
And
presidents.
he
Yeah.
said, "I'm not going to be president anymore." So we
Well,
said,
you can't, right? You only.
Well, supposedly
Oh,
not, but
yeah.
yeah,
But
was
he was
forced
for
to
like
do it.
for 15
Which
years
means
at
that.
least he was president. Yeah, yeah.
And then we have, well, I should give you the names of the guys. Krieger is the president. Dan Wax. Paul Kitzinger, he's the secretary. Mike Bronco is the treasurer, and he's been since we started.
Okay.
Back in 2003, was it?